Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Flag. I'm your host, Lukas Wacker, and with me, as always, we have Kyle Cushman. And welcome to the third of 5 episodes for Speed Weeks at Daytona. Very fun episode in store. This is the NASCAR Fantasy Preview, making its triumphant return to the Green Flag once again this season. And Kyle's going to be joining a league right from the get-go. Here, we're going to have our own league here at the Green Flag. So make sure to go join the league. We'll get to the fantasy later on. It's going to be a fun season, so we don't have to worry about usages all over the place this year. We can focus on it in a determined set place on the NASCAR Fantasy app. So going to be a fun episode here. We got the duels to recap after last night as well. We were supposed to record last night, but Mother Nature had some other ideas, to say the least, so we decided to push it to today and get you set up for the Truck Series race that's happening later on tonight, the Xfinity Series race happening tomorrow, and of course the Daytona 500 on Sunday. But before we get into all that, how you doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing great because we had cars around the Daytona Oval last night, and it was fantastic. And yeah, Mother Nature pushed it back a little bit, but actually worked out a little bit better for myself here. I don't think it would have been great for my roommates if we recorded a show at like 12:30, 1 in the morning when it ended up finishing last night. It was a late finish. It's so much so that Brad Keselowski had a birthday in between. But no, doing good, feeling amped for this weekend. It's almost here. You can taste the racing coming up tonight with the Truck Series. Can't wait for that because that's going to be an absolute banger. Always starts off the weekend of actual racing fantastically. But yeah, doing well, and can't wait to get into fantasy. I'm hoping for a bit of a resurgence this year. It was a tough last season. I was a bit of a rookie noob. I wasn't super well versed. You kind of kicked my butt all year, but I'm feeling good heading into this year, and I feel like I'm going to take that crown.
Ooh, coming out strong with the remarks out of the gate, Kyle. I'm definitely not I'm going to make sure that does not happen this year. I'm going to say that right out of the gate as well. Okay. This is
Don't forget, by NASCAR rules, I won the last race, so technically I should be the champion, but
you can look at it whichever way you want. That's not what the record shows. I'm
just saying.
You know, I tend to think of myself as a little bit of a fantasy nut to an extent on a lot of things, and I take this stuff pretty seriously. So hopefully I can reclaim my crown that I had last season, despite what Kyle imagines happened. I'll take it all the way to the bank. But we got a bit of a more negative note to start today's episode in terms of the news and notes. Fernando Alonso was unfortunately involved in a road accident yesterday while cycling in Switzerland. He is conscious and well, and he's awaiting further examination today. So we'll see what happens in terms of that. We'll keep you updated on that storyline as more details get released, but we're wishing Fernando Alonso all the best. Obviously, this is nothing we would ever want to wish upon anybody, and it's a terrible thing for Fernando Alonso making his triumphant return back to Formula One this season. We're hopeful that he's going to be healthy and safe by the time the season starts in Bahrain this season. So wishing Fernando Alonso all the best and wishing him a speedy recovery, because it does seem like he did get quite a bit of a knock in the accident from all the reports that we've been hearing. So our thoughts and prayers are with him and his entire family and with Alpine as they navigate through this difficult time right now. So wishing him a speedy recovery, and we'll hopefully see him behind the wheel of a Formula One car by the time the season gets underway. Daytona Duels, Kyle, happened last night.
Yeah, they did.
Under the lights once again this year on the Thursday night, and we got that kind of prediction right in terms of the Duel 1 was a little bit more tame, as the broadcast pointed out multiple times over their rain delay, and Duel 2 was pretty exceptional, pretty hectic from the get-go.
Very chaotic, yeah.
And we've got a lot to kind of rip apart from all of these duels last night. So let's get into the first one there. It was intense from start to finish. I felt like still that first one. It was pretty antsy at the beginning there, some sketchy stuff, going 3 wide right out of the gate was pretty these guys did not hold back, to say the least. They really wanted to test their cars and try and put them to the test in the draft, and they certainly did that. And there were some major storylines coming out of this one that may get overlooked due to the chaos that happened in that second one, namely the wrecks. But there's some underlining stuff here that could really impact what the 500 has in store. And I think that starts with the pole sitter, Alex Bowman. And he suffered Engine problem. We don't know to the extent what it is. He was kind of out of the draft. He pulled out of line and came down pit road to assess what was going on. He didn't feel something right, and we'll see if they need an engine change prior to Sunday. They are not doing it today. They're going to wait till they have practice here on Saturday with their 2 practice sessions, and they'll assess it then when it's under full power and single car runs and in the draft as well, and see how that car and the engine handles. But if they decide to, he's going to need an engine change. Then he's going to be starting at the rear of the pack, joining his teammate there, William Byron, which we will talk about in a second. So the Hendrick front row lockout that seemed all but certain is anything but that right now, Kyle. So what do you make of Alex Bowman's troubles last night? Because that was a topic of discussion that may be overlooked due to the stuff that happened in duel number 2.
Yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere because it was something that happened on commercial break when he pulled out of line and went to the pits. And so I saw on Twitter that somebody said that they heard on radio that somebody was blowing up. And so your mind races through everybody in the field. And for it to be the one guy that's locked into a position is really, really tough. And again, we don't know to the extent. It was smart for Bowman in that instance to recognize that something could be going wrong, not to stay there and potentially have a blow up on him, wreck a bunch of people or anything like that. Take it down. If there is a problem, get it fixed. Take your penalty if you need to. If not, we'll see what ends up going. But for now, it looks like they're hopeful. They'll try it out on practice on Saturday, see if there's anything terminal there that they need to go ahead and fix before we get to Sunday. But fingers crossed for Bowman because he's got quite the streak of starting on the front row, and it would be a shame if that gets thrown away just because of some engine troubles here. Hopefully he can stay up front because it would be really, really unfortunate for Hendrick to have a front row lockout on Wednesday night and have neither of them start on the front row come the actual 500. But a great opportunity for the couple guys that won their duels potentially to jump up under the front row there.
Yeah.
We already know one of them will, with Byron being involved in that crash. But yeah, I'm hoping for Bowman because that car was bad fast. And very, very unfortunate that of all the people that have some kind of engine trouble in that first duel, it happened to be Bowman.
Yeah, it could be Hendrick's master plan. They don't tend to finish the race up front when they qualify in the front row. Maybe they feel like they have to start in the back
a little bit.
Yeah, just spread the wealth there at Hendrick. But Alex Bowman, we'll see what happens with practice tomorrow. We're gonna have another episode prior or after the Trucks and Xfinity Series race, so we'll let you know if Bowman ends up going to a backup engine with that car, but we'll see what happens with the 48 car. That feels weird to say that Alex Bowman is in the 48 car, I got to be honest, but it still looks like a pretty sporty paint scheme, I got to say.
So good.
It's in contention for the season end awards already, I have to say that. But later on in the duel here, it was the open entry cars that really kind of stole the show in terms of storylines, and the 2 favorites in both duels suffered issues but prior to their counterparts, and that one in the first duel was Austin Cindric being the favorite in that one. Ty Dillon was definitely very impressive in this one, though, staying in the draft very much so throughout the entire race, staying in the top 10 probably more frequently than Austin Cindric as well. But it came time for green flag pit stops, a caution-free first duel as well. So that's why we ended up getting these green flag pit stops at around lap 40 or so. Cindric speeds on the exit of pit road. Obviously, this is his first time in a Cup Series car under live green flag pit stops, the digital dash. And he sped on the last section of pit road on his way out. And bit of a rookie mistake there from Cindric, but you live and you learn to an extent. But forcing him to make a pass-through penalty, and as a result of that, he loses the draft, and he would go 1 lap down as a result of that. So he'll need a lot of circumstances to go his way, or certain circumstances to go his way, in order to make the 500, and it obviously did for him, but we'll get to how that all unfolded in just a second here. Denny Hamlin's car also team did not also get their car full of fuel in their green flag pit stop, so that was kind of a bit of a mess at the end there as well, coming out of 3 and 4 when he ran out of gas, and everybody had to he looked like Derek Cope, let's be honest, there on that final lap there. But Hamlin had his reasons. The other man, I don't know what the heck he was doing, but we'll talk about that in a little bit in the second duel there. But Ty Dillon was in the transfer spot all the way to about 200 feet to the start finish line, and It was pretty nuts, that finish, I got to be honest. So Eric Almirola was the guy in front the entire duel, it seemed, and Joey Logano was his pusher
Yeah, it
the
was a
entire
reversal
duel.
from last year's duel.
It was. And they made the point in the broadcast, Newman, Almirola, and Logano all finished 1-2-3 in their duel, and they were running 1-2-3 there for a large majority of the event as well. So they're pretty consistent when it comes to the duels. They seem to have a good working relationship. And when it came down to it, Logano had a run going into turn 3 and 4. Fake tie, went low underneath Almirola, but Eric Almirola pulled off a masterful side draft and was able to prevail himself up against Joey Logano on his right rear corner and side draft and get to the start-finish line first. A huge win for Eric Almirola to win the first duel, his first career duel win as well. So congratulations to him. He led 52 of the 60 laps en route to the victory. He holds off Christopher Bell, who was a pretty interesting storyline to watch as well throughout that race. Pretty sporty, it seemed, that number 20 car.
Yeah.
And
Bell's always in the conversation at the end of the super speedways. Like a couple times last year, he was up there in like the top 3, top 5 at the end of races and just kind of got hung out to dry by somebody. I remember in the regular season finale at Daytona, I think it was Truex that hung him out to dry when he was running in second or something like that in a must-win scenario for him. So he's maybe a sneaky pick come Sunday. I don't know if maybe he's a guy that most people are keying in on, but a very, very strong showing for him there in that first duel.
Shout out to Nigel. He is the underdog pick for with Christopher Bell this weekend. He's picking him as his secondary pick. He's got Denny Hamlin with his primary pick. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. Going Joe Gibbs racing heavy there for Nigel. Shout out to him. Yeah. So as it came down to it, Eric Almirola wins in a photo finish, technically about a half a car length over Christopher Bell. Logano fell back to, I think it was 4th there at the end of it. So not too bad for Logano, my pick to win the duel, but Kyle gets this pick correctly with getting the race winner for the duel. So congrats to Kyle with keeping his pretty successful streak, a pretty high winning percentage here with predictions so far this season.
It's been pretty decent. What I got... Well, was it 2 or 3 out of the 5 for
I think you got 2, and Rolex. I got 1, so then we had 3 out of the 5 in total.
Right. Yeah, so I had 2 at Rolex, got 1 here for NASCAR, so I'm
2 for NASCAR technically for the pole front row pick, kind of.
Yeah, but it wasn't the first one though, so I'll get like a half point for that one or something. Okay. I don't know. We might have to get like a scoring system for the year or something.
That's not bad. That could be a good idea. But yeah, so it came down to it. Eric Almirola justifies Kyle pick there. I was so close. I was rooting on Logano. I never do that, but I was kind of hoping. It was. I really wanted my pick to beat yours because it was between the two.
It was a really good finish in that regard.
And, unfortunately, I fall on the short end of the stick on that side of things. But just a couple of cars back behind that leading pair was Ty Dillon and Ryan Preece. He was in this duel, and this is the key. Ryan Preece finishes ahead of Ty Dillon on the last second prior to the start-finish line. Preece finishes 5th. Ty Dillon finishes 6th. Ty Dillon does not make the Daytona 500 field, unfortunately, for Gaunt Brothers. He was in position the entire time, executed the green flag pit stops with his Toyota teammates, and I thought he did a great job. I really wish that 96 car was in the 500 because it did show some pretty solid speed. So it's really unfortunate for that team. Ty Dillon obviously trying to make the 500. He's in a part-time basis here with that team and just kind of just lingering around the Toyota camp throughout the entire season, it seems here. He's deserving of a shot at the 500. It's unfortunate that that team is going home once again this season. 2 years in a row that 96 car does not make the 500. And this time they did everything right. Finishing 6th in the duel would usually mean an open entry makes the field. But unfortunately, due to circumstances here and the rules, with Ryan Preece nipping Ty Dillon at the line, that means that Ryan Preece technically raced his way in to the 500, which then means that they go back to qualifying speed to get that second open entry car. And Austin Cindric had the advantage over Ty Dillon in qualifying on single car speed from Wednesday night. He qualified 19th tentatively there with Cindric, and that was enough for him to qualify for the Daytona 500, despite being a lap down and finishing back in the pack at the finish of that one. But so to cover it all up there, Ryan Preece and Austin Cindric are the ones that advanced from duel number 1 to make the Daytona 500 field, leaving 2 spots left for duel number 2, which we'll talk about. Eric Almirola will start 3rd, maybe even 1st. We'll see what happens with Alex Bowman's engine if he moves up to that front row. But right now, Eric Almirola is starting 3rd for the Daytona 500. But What do you make of that first duel, Kyle? Some interesting things that we were not expecting. The engine issue with Bowman, obviously, we talked about, but that chaotic finish there with the open entry cars, getting that finish that we deserve in a duel where there is a storyline actually taking place at the finish of it.
Yeah, I'll start with kind of the top end of things and then work my way back to the open entries here. And for starters, I was kind of fascinated to see how the green flag pit stops went, because we also didn't get that in the second duel. But the lack of Toyotas in that first one kind of screwed them over a little bit there, as we saw I'm thinking about I can't remember. Actually, right here. Was it?
It was 3-3 in both duels.
Right, but because Christopher Bell got his way back, but there was some.
So Hamilton ran out of gas at the end.
That's what it was. Okay. So anyways, regardless, but there was some stuff to look at from the green flag pit cycles there, and how it was kind of interesting how each manufacturer went on their own lap there.
Hamlin he had such a quick pit stop that he was so far ahead of the Toyotas.
That's what it was.
So
that's what it was. Right.
Everybody else, the Toyotas are just looking at it around. And
that happened to Kyle Larson too there, where he got out really quickly and they just flew by him. So I forgot exactly what it was there. It's a long time ago now that we had a 2-hour rain delay and everything.
I forgive you.
I apologize. Thank you. But anyways, I was surprised how kind of consistent it was, Almirola and Logano at the front of the field. You would have thought that, especially how racy it was early on, there would have been a lot more kind of leaders throughout this race. But Almirola basically led a vast majority of this race, and we kind of got a tame little bit there after the green flag cycles kind of cycled through, and kind of got a train at the top there, which you expect to see for a little bit.
In the duels, especially.
Exactly. So no harm, no foul there, but very impressive from Almirola, because they had a lot of raw pace and single car speed in qualifying, and then they show extremely well in the race as well, never really dropping back in the pack. They were always at the start, at the beginning of a line throughout the entire race, and very impressive there. So it's a good sign for Almirola coming into this weekend. I went with the Tampa Bay pick for the duel. It worked out well.
Tampa, not Tampa Bay. Tampa, Florida. Mike Joy made that mistake so many times. It's Tampa, Florida.
Tampa, Florida. I apologize. The Lightning messed me up there. Anyways,
and the Bucks.
The big thing is the open entries, right? Everything's fine and dandy at the front, but really it's only the winner that matters. The top 10 for like a few points that might end up being substantial by the end of the year, depending on how close the kind of playoff grid is there. But really the most important thing is the open entry battle. And it kind of got a lot of people up in arms last night, because you would think that the car that's locked in as an open entry wouldn't impact how things go in the duel, but that's not how the rule's written. It's the factor goes to whoever races their way in, that takes precedence over qualifying pace, and then it goes to qualifying pace next. So
kind of weird.
I don't know how you feel about that. It's kind of weird, because you have to have qualifying first, but if you want the race your way in to matter more, you can't really do it in a way that qualifying happens afterwards. So it makes more sense in a chronological order, but I would prefer it if it's just the two qualifying lock their way in, and then whoever finishes first in terms of the duels make their way in. I understand why it's the way it is right now, but you could tell a lot of people were confused. Even Chase Elliott was confused about it, which was kind of funny to see.
Yeah. We don't usually see that. That's why. It's not usually the case. We don't have an open entry kind of duel at the end.
No, we don't, no, like at all, especially one that's that far up in the field and battling for a top 5 there. So really, really heartbroken for Dillon there.
Yeah.
A great run for him the entire night. Stayed with the pack, stayed in the pack for a lot of the race, was up in the top 5, ended up finishing 6th.
Yeah.
So technically the Gaunt brothers get some points out of this weekend, which is kind of funny as well, which might help them going forwards, depending on owner points and everything like that. Every point matters for those open entries, as Ryan Preece said after the duel, because some people asked him, of course, well, you were locked in and your finishing position affected who got in, so why were you, essentially that kind of thing, or why didn't you just stay in the back and just kind of finish? And for Ryan Preece, it makes a lot of sense. They got to maximize every single point that they can get, because they're an open entry. They're not guaranteed into every single race, especially given they don't have their owner points from last season either. So made a lot of sense for Priest there. A nice little finish for them. Almirola starts with a nice clean 10 points from the duel, which if things go the way that we kind of predict this season, he's going to be in a battle for a playoff spot most of this year as well. So that's going to be big for him. And yeah, just unfortunate the way that the open entries kind of went, because it would have been a great finish and everything like that would have taken precedence. But instead it was once again focusing on a bit of a niche rule that some people didn't understand, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of you qualify your way in. I think your job's done. I think that's why it's just
chronological, right? It would make most sense if the person who's locked in on the Wednesday doesn't impact the results on Thursday, right?
Yeah, but then that's the thing. So it doesn't impact the results from Wednesday, but then it kind of does if that guy finishes first. You go back to the qualifying, so it doesn't. So
I know. I'm saying. No, I wish it wasn't like that. Yeah,
I agree with you. What you're saying. If I might have messed that up, but
no, we're good. We're good.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just I just think that you can't go back and forth. I think you have to just go chronological, like you said. It just doesn't make sense to go back and forth and just kind of be nitpicky. I feel like, just go one here, one there. It just, if you go chronological, you get your 2 from the qualifying, A+, you made the 500. You don't have to worry about it at all. And you don't, of course, if you don't finish ahead of those guys in the open entry kind of thing.
And we saw that from Reagan in the second one. But.
Exactly. But no, he finished first in that, didn't he? Because of everything that happened in that second.
Well, yeah, but like in terms of Reagan not being up in the pack and battling, he sat in the back the entire time and just saved his car. It just happened that every other open entry ended up wrecking.
Yeah, if Reagan was in that first duel instead of Priest, then you're looking at probably Ty Dillon making the field.
Ty Dillon is 100%.
Just based off of strategy. But like you said, with a good point with Priest, he's looking for every point he can this season, and he had to go up there and try and get
Reagan, the 36, doesn't matter because this is the only race they're running. So
exactly. It is what it is.
Kind of tough in that regard.
It is
heartbreaking for the 96, especially how they missed out on it last year, and then this year missing out in tough fashion as well. Just heartbreaker for them. And you could see Ty Dillon after the race as well. Some of the photos there, just heartbreaking stuff. But it's the Daytona 500. And stuff like that's going to happen. It's just a bit more annoying when you see cars like the Rick Ware entries locked in and somebody like the 96 who was actually going out and trying to compete and that kind of stuff misses out on the field. Or you look to the second one and Noah Gregson, stuff like that. Even the MBM entries, which were up and surprisingly quick in the past
Timmy Hill did a decent job in that first duel there. We can't forget about him. He was up there in the mix a little bit. I think he had an issue there. He went a lap down there. I don't know what exactly transpired.
Lost the draft.
Did he lose the draft from the pits? Yeah, that's unfortunate for him. He was doing a pretty solid job. So to sum it up there, Ryan Priest makes the Daytona 500 field along with Austin Cindric, which means Ty Dillon and Timmy Hill go home. Then we had a rain delay. So
a rain delay, perfect length to fit in a hockey game, funny enough.
Yeah, it's like the Mother Nature was looking out for your side here.
Yeah,
well, on my side of things, I wasn't too pleased with how my hockey team played last night, so we won't talk about that. But besides hockey, rain delay there for about 2 hours, it seemed. So they had the 30-minute kind of break that they were anticipating there between each duel. But then it started to pour buckets down in terms of rain. So they got the track relatively dry apart from a jet dryer spinning in the corner. But we
was really funny.
We looked past that. I'm surprised it doesn't happen more. But we lost one jet dryer. We had a fatality there with the jet dryer there for a second. But besides that, we had the rain delay, and they got the track dry relatively quickly. The Florida scattering thunderstorms that they usually have impacted us a little bit, but it stayed away to get the second duel in time. So let's take a look at that second duel because, oh boy, what a chaotic one right from the get-go. Like it usually is. Like we said, duel one is a little bit more tame. Second duel is where the action really kicks off. And that was evident just based off of the drivers that were in this one. But there was a lot on the line for some of these guys, and it was a more competitive and open entry battle that we were assuming that was going to be happening in this one compared to that first one. But Ty Dillon did shock us a little bit, probably based off of their pace and how well he kept in the mix there. But this one was even more so. We had a lot more of back and forth throughout, lots of line shifting throughout the race. I was No, I texted you during the race. Bubba Wallace is sketchy, and that 23 car is bad fast, but it looks all over the place. And it was kind of that theme throughout the entire race. The 23 car was able to move throughout the pack, had great maneuverability. It seems like that car was handling pretty well for him. It just seemed like Bubba Wallace was just like this boatload of energy that he was just trying to move around all the time. And sometimes that bit him, and he, like he said in his post-race interview, he has a lot to learn, and I do think he was being a little bit hard on himself. You know, he feels bad that he lost the race, and like he said, you're allowed to be hard on yourself, of course, but I do think when he goes back and looks at the tape, he will understand that he did a pretty solid job with what he had behind him, and it was a pretty solid effort there from 23XI's really big debut with Bubba Wallace behind the wheel of that car in racing conditions. So we'll talk about him a little bit later on, but one of the only cautions in the duels, there was two in this one, but they were pretty significant. Happened with 25 laps to go, and that was just prior to green flag pit stops that were anticipating to be happening. The booth was just like, when are they pitting? They got to be coming this lap. No, it's got to be the next lap. And then it didn't happen, and then, of course, caution strikes, and Chase Briscoe gets bad in a bad aero situation, gets loose off a turn 2, causing accordion effect behind him, collecting Kaz Gralla, an open entry car here that was significant at the time. Anthony Alfredo, Garrett Smithley as well was in this one, and BJ McLeod for Live Fast Motorsports was all involved in this wreck. So a couple of back markers, but some that are crucial to that open entry battle, namely Garrett Smithley and Kaz Gralla, of course. Gralla got the worst of it in terms of damage between the two of them. And Anthony Alfredo was done for the night after that one. So the rest of them were able to continue to an extent. They were just kind of trudging along throughout the remainder of the race. But pretty significant there, Kyle, as Kaz Gralla gets involved in an incident after Chase Briscoe just looked like we texted a little bit, just a bad aero situation there off of turn 2.
Yeah, it was strange there for Briscoe. It was a bit of a weird position that he found himself in. I'm not exactly sure what exactly happened in terms of the aero, but you could tell the way that the car spun around on him, there was something that got dumped on either the nose or the spoiler or something there. But a good job to avoid the wreck for Ross Chastain there. That was right in front of him. He had to check up. Unfortunately, it meant that Alfredo and Gralla got in together. Smithley with a nice kind of avoidance going all the way down, spinning out on his own, but no
Best
damage
piece of
for
driving
himself
he did
there.
all night.
Okay, he was decent until a certain wreck, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But the big thing was Gralla, and he kind of came out worst out of that. Briscoe had his damage, Alfredo had his damage. Didn't really matter for them because they were going to probably start in the back half of the field for the 500 anyways. No harm, nothing lost there. For Kaz Gralla, though, a decent amount of damage put them pretty significantly behind. And for them, it was just kind of get back out there, run as many laps as you can and hope something happens, right? Yeah, they ended up one lap down there. And they were in a situation where they either needed Reagan to finish best of everybody there or for both Smithley and Gregson to wreck. So so he finished ahead of them and all good. And, well, we know how things ended up playing out, but kind of a tame first caution, I got to say, even though there was some open entries involved. It wasn't anything big. It was kind of it wasn't somebody getting tagged or spun around. It was an aero thing. There was a spin. There was one car involved that ended up a lap down. A couple of cars went behind the garage just because there was no reason to go back out. But all in all, for given how kind of racy things were for a full race and then a half race on top of that, having one caution in like that was kind of impressive, and I was a little bit surprised.
We saw in that duel, I think, a little bit more of the manufacturer kind of alliances, and it more so than the first one. We saw the Chevrolets.
There was more opportunity too as well.
Yeah, the Chevrolets were really much bottled together on the bottom line. It seemed like consistently William Byron was definitely the guy leading that pack and leading that charge for the majority of it. Austin Dillon, Chase Elliott, Kurt Busch kind of all stayed in tow for the majority of the race. And then the Fords kind of worked together as well. Harvick, along with Keselowski and Blaney were also up there. So it was kind of all over the place in terms of who's getting a push from when. And the Toyotas did a pretty good job as well in this one. Truex, Kyle Busch, and Bubba Wallace, they were kind of all over the place throughout the race, up and down. But at the end, they were able to survive it all and kind of were packed together.
1, 2, 3 after the restart.
It was. And it was after the second restart that was. And let's get into that.
Yes, getting a little bit ahead of myself.
Second wreck here. Oh, boy. 5 laps to go. Garrett Smithley he's in a desperation move. I understand that. He's behind Noah Gragson there. He sees the guy that he has to beat right there because Kaz Gralla is kind of out of it at this point in time. It seemed like it was between Garrett Smithley and Noah Gragson. And Gragson did a masterful job in this race up to that point in time. He was just minding his own business. And
Smithley, too. Give him his due for what he deserves. That is an MBM car. It's an old model, and he was up there contending with Gragson for most of the race. So props to get into that position in the first place.
Yeah, I'll give him that, but I'm going to go against him here pretty quickly. So he tries to make a move to the inside, and he tries to split the gap 3 wide. There's a car on the inside, which is Brad Keselowski, Gragson in the high lane, which Smithley was just following. So he tries to split the difference and go through the middle. And that hole really closed up on him, if there was even one there. I'm not too sure if he could really squeeze in there in the first place. Some people are, I think, being a little bit generous to Garrett Smithley on this one, but he's going for the 500. It's a huge opportunity for an MBM car to try and even think about making it when he's looking at the competition he's going up against. And he went for the gap, and unfortunately it closed for him. He collects Brad Keselowski, spinning him into the outside wall, which collects Noah Gragson. And Ross Chastain and William Byron, this is where his night comes to a screeching halt. The outside front row sitter for the Daytona 500 is going to a backup car. He gets collected pretty heavily in this one, tries to avoid to the inside. It's really unfortunate for Byron because he was leading the majority of this duel, and that outside line just prevailed there within 2 laps prior to that incident. And Byron was just in the wrong place at the wrong time and gets collected there. Kind of got sideswiped. He had kind of avoided it, but he just gets taken out, and then he gets sent in the outside wall as well. Chastain, Gragson, Byron, Keselowski, and Garrett Smithley all involved in this one. So some big heavy hitters here that could go into the 500 as potential favorites to win the race are collected in this one and are going to be backup cars. We'll take a look at who's going to a backup car in a little bit. But big implications here for the duel itself. The open entries, Gragson defeated, of course. That's so devastating for him. You know, he did such a great job paying tribute to Mr. Beard, of course, his owner who tragically passed away prior to the 500 here. So thoughts and prayers are still with that family as they are going through a difficult time. I can't imagine. It was Gregson's chance to really prove himself, making his Cup debut, hopefully for the 500, and it all comes to a screeching halt there. So what do you make of the incident there, Kyle, your dissection of it? Do you think Smithley's in the right, the wrong, or do you think it was just a racing incident?
Looking back on it, so the problem I have is more with why he decided to make the move rather than the move itself. Because the wreck itself was mainly caused because Keselowski started coming up, Smithley was there, and then they make the contact. So I don't really blame Smithley for the wreck starting in that regard. But I just don't understand what he was going for there. I understand there's 5 laps to go. You need to make your moves when you can find them. You're right behind Gragson, so you need to get ahead of him. But making that move to the middle, there's no help there.
No.
And
he
there's
did that
5
a
laps
couple
to
of
go.
times throughout the race as well. I will say that. He just went to the middle, and I don't know if he just thought people were going to follow him, but nobody ever did, and he always just fell back. So
yeah, and I don't know if he was going to try to side draft into the corner, have Gragson drop back, and then slide up into the hole there or something like that. It didn't really seem like that's what the plan was. But yeah, the issue I have is less about why the crash happened and more why make that move in the first place. And you could tell Keselowski was surprised to have somebody there in the middle because he was starting to come up with, I think it was Harvick in front of him, and he was drafting behind him and was following him in behind. So I feel like maybe some people are being it's trying to find the middle ground because it's not exclusively on Smithley, but he's not completely absolved either. And so I'm somewhere in the middle there. I don't really get why he was making that move, especially at that time. If you're going to make that desperation move, go to the middle and see if something sticks. You do that with like 2 to go. You don't do that with 5 because there's still a lot to go. We see in that first duel, it looked like Dillon was smooth sailing to the finish, and then all of a sudden everything gets jumbled up and he gets beat to the line by Priest. So you never know what can happen on that last lap. Smithley should have been a little bit more patient. He's not used to being in that situation. You can understand it from that regard, but unfortunate that that's the way that it ends for both of them as well, because it took both out. It wasn't a situation where Smithley ended up prevailing because of the wreck or Gragson ended up prevailing because of the wreck. both cars that were there battling for the open entry position ended up losing out on it because Smithy's moved there. So it's heartbreaking to see it end for both of them in that way. It would have been a great underdog story if one of the MBM entries was able to race their way in, not even have it come from a wreck or anything like that.
Yeah.
But instead, it goes back to Kaz Grala because, of course, with the wreck, both of them go out of the race. David Reagan finishes first of the open entries. Kaz Grala, of course, then the next fastest for qualifying because we got to do that again technically. And yeah, a great little way for Kaz Grala to make his way into the show. Again, probably not the way that they envisioned it. Probably going to have to go to a backup car there, I would assume. But for Kaz Grala, he's in the show and now calling back-to-back Daytona 500 entries for them. Justin Haley last year, Kaz Grala this year, and excited to see what they can do there. Unfortunate for Gregson and Beard Motorsports. Would have been a great story there. Of course, as you mentioned, with the owner there passing away this week. Would have been a great story for them to go ahead and make the show. A little bit heartbroken there, but for Kaz Grala, a great opportunity for him to show, because we know as well in the lower series he's been great on super speedways. Wasn't really able to show it late in the showing in this one because of the wreck early on. That was just kind of wrong place at the wrong time. So excited to see what colleague and Kaz Grala can do once they get to the show on Sunday.
Shout out Kaz Grala as well for liking our Instagram posts as well.
Shout out Kaz Grala.
That man is a gem. He's working his way up to Josh Palicki territory here. I got to be honest. You know, that's all these guys, man. They just are loving the content that they're seeing. So, yeah, happy about that. So Kaz Grala makes his way into the 500 there, as Kyle mentioned. It was just a chain of events that just kind of all worked his way after it seemed like it was against him. From the beginning, it seemed like Kaz Grala and Austin Cindric at one point or another were not going to be making the 500 field, and lo and behold, they both make the 500 just based off of circumstances and things going their way. So the two favorites, the two cars that will most likely be in more of a contention spot come Sunday are going to be making a field. Ty Dillon, you can make that argument. Noah Greggs, you can make that argument, of course, that they could have been in there as well. But based off of prowess and what we expect for in terms of performance, and we saw in single car speed, those two cars 19th and 20th compared to the other guys, they had single car speed, and it seemed like they had some pretty solid drafting speed as well in the pack. So it makes sense. I'm happy that at least the two guys that are probably the most deserving to an extent in terms of speed are making the 500. If we can get a more competitive 500 like this, that's always the best thing. So it makes sense in that regard. But let's look at the finish of this race as it comes down to a green-white checkered finish. The Toyota's up front. Truex the leader. Bubba Wallace second. Kyle Busch in third. He was complaining about his car basically the entire night, just in terms of being sucky and so terrible to suck up to somebody in front of him. So that was fun to listen to. But Bubba Wallace was a guy that was
the one time where you want something to be sucky.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, there you go, Kyle. That was pretty good. So Truex slides down as the typical restart kind of tandem thing works. Starts on the outside, pulls down in front. The Toyota's had everything on lock to an extent, and then let's move to the final lap. Excuse me. Let's move to the final lap on the back straightaway.
The chaos that was. Oh.
Derek Cope, what are you doing, man? So Truex is in the lead. They've got Austin Dillon and Kevin Harvick on the outside lane. He's got his two Toyota teammates there and Truex right behind him. And I don't know if Truex was just kind of freaked out or something, but he kind of slides up from the bottom groove a little bit and gets caught in the middle because there is a Derek Cope car on the inside right along the double yellow line on the back straightaway. There's about a car's width in between that and the grass to where he was running. I don't know why he was going so slow. I have no explanation for it, but it was definitely a hazard to the drivers. It reminded me back to Kevin LePage at Talladega. If he slid up, there would have been the biggest wreck that we've ever seen basically in the duels. Thankfully, it did not happen, and we did not get a Kevin LePage part 2 this year with Derek Cope, but it was just so stupid. I don't know what he was doing there, especially on the final lap of the race. At least move out of the way or something. Speed up. Go on the banking at least, and then, you're a little bit more out of the way. But it was so inches between contact there between Truex and himself. So Truex moves up out of the way. The momentum behind him, Bubba Wallace kind of squeezes underneath him there. It was Truex. Austin Dillon's got a full head of steam on the outside lane. Then Truex gets split in the middle. He falls all the way back. So then it becomes Bubba Wallace who gets a great push from Kyle Busch to go to the lead. But then we got the Kevin Harvick and Austin Dillon duo that has even more of a push on the outside lane. Bubba slides up in front of Dillon off of turn 4. Dillon pulls off a pretty nice move to pull off a power move to the inside. Goes underneath Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace tries to side draft there. Gets a little bit of contact there, but Austin Dillon ends up winning his first career duel in duel number 2. Pretty impressive stuff there from the 3-car. Showed some pretty good speed throughout the night, was kind of playing second fiddle there to Byron before his troubles there in that wreck, and he was in the right place at the right time. Harvick seemed like he had a really good pushing car throughout the entire event, so that bodes well for him in going for his second career Daytona 500 come Sunday. Austin Dillon, though, pretty underrated super speedway racer, I have to say. Has won the Daytona 500 in the past, and he seemed like he had a pretty solid piece underneath him here at the duels as well. So congratulations to Austin Dillon. Bubba Wallace comes home in a very solid second-place effort there in that duel. So congratulations to him on a successful debut at 2311 Racing. And, pretty solid duel at the end of things. As Kyle said, Kaz Gralla didn't really have to worry about anything in that final couple of laps there. David Reagan just took care of his business, and Gralla just kind of rode around to get the car home in somewhat of one piece of what it was already kind of dismantled in some extent. So pretty solid second duel there. Lots of entertainment, lots of action, some sparks flew, and at the end of it all, we get the 2 favorites in the open entries making the 500, and 2 maybe underrated duel winners there. You predicted Eric Almirola was a good pick. Austin Dillon, I don't know if I necessarily would have picked him, but he's definitely in that mix with what you look at in terms of the duels. He's just kind of overlooked in terms of how fluky some of his wins sometimes get. But this was a really solid overall performance there from Austin Dillon, Kyle.
Yeah, fantastic showing from Austin Dillon there. And yeah, last night I mentioned he's a very underrated super speedway racer, to the point where if you look at average finish just among active Cup Series drivers at Daytona, he's the best among drivers with a minimum of 10 starts. In 15 starts, he's got the 1 win, of course, the Daytona 500, but of an average finish of 15.5, which is very, very impressive for super speedway. The only ones better than him are, other than just a couple of starts, is Bubba Wallace, who has 7. Denny Hamlin is right behind him with 30 starts, 16.3, extremely impressive from Hamlin, especially with the recent run he's been on. But for Austin Dillon, very, very underrated in this regard. Nice to see the 3 as well, getting back in victory lane for the duels. We know how long that Dale Earnhardt Sr. dominated at the duels, so it was nice to see that return as well. But no, a fantastic showing from Austin Dillon. Nice move at the end of the race. Saw that block coming from a mile away, so as soon as he saw Bubba Wallace turn to the right, he was down to the left. Perfect move. Nothing that Bubba Wallace could do. I know he was hard on himself afterwards, but if Wallace is blocking that move, there's a big wreck behind because of the amount of momentum that Dillon had. He wasn't lifting. There would have been a big wreck behind. So for everybody, it was probably best that Bubba Wallace didn't end up getting that block.
It's just the duels at the end of the day, right?
Exactly. There's a couple points on the line, but realistically, it's just the starting position. Save your good car for the 500.
Race car for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to take out of that race, though. Austin Dillon looking very strong because we didn't really see much from Tyler Reddick, so it's good to see RCR does have that pace. Daniel Suarez in the first one as well looked pretty strong as well at times. So we see that RCR and the affiliated team there with some pace there. Bubba Wallace has that pace, both single car and in the pack, so that's going to be exciting to see. There's a lot of different stuff to take out of this one, but Austin Dillon goes out, gets the job done. I will admit I did overlook him for the duel. Had I looked a little bit stronger, I think Austin Dillon would have been a sneaky good pick, obviously, because he went out and did the thing. But yeah, I once again kind of slept on in these. He does end up on the as the butt of the joke a lot of the time for people, the silver spoon and everything like that. We've heard countless times, but that definitely isn't true on super speedways. He's legitimately one of the better drivers in the field on super speedways, and he showed it in this second duel here, biding his time, being up to the front when he needed to be, and then making the move at the right time of the race.
At the end of it all, we come out square even in terms of predictions for this one. I get both open entries right. You get the one duel right there, completely right there with Austin Cindric and Eric Almirola. The second duel, you get a big fat 0 in it. But, I do appreciate the risky pick there.
I was feeling good at one point. I was feeling good until the Smith.
I felt like I had absolutely screwed mine up. But, Byron did a pretty solid job there. And it's unfortunate that thing's going to a backup car, because I think he would have been – he's in contention for the win with that car on Sunday. We'll see what the practice speeds look like when they get the backup car.
The paint scheme's starting to grow on me a little bit.
Yeah.
Starting to grow on me. It's still strange. It's still different.
I know.
Growing on me a little bit.
I know. I didn't want to say it. It is too. I don't mind the colors, I just don't know if I like the black base. I think that's probably my biggest
Black
issue
base
with
is
it.
weird.
I think if it was a white base or something, or even just a navy blue base, then we're talking mwah. But the black base is still just a little bit off-putting.
I'm sure the
But
under the lights probably factors in as well. Everything looks better under the lights.
yeah, our judgment will be held back until we see it during the daytime. Not at Daytona, but on like a mile and a half. We'll have to see what that thing looks like without the big ass spoiler on the back. So, let's take a look at. Unfortunately, before we wrap it up on the duels, Ty Dillon, Timmy Hill, Garrett Smithley, and Noah Gragson are all of your open entries that are unfortunately not going to be making the race on Sunday. So, hopefully, they'll be having a chance to come back next year and trying to make it in with the next gen car. We're expecting a couple more entries. I'm sure next year with that car debuting and a couple more open entries just based off of the price tag that comes along with making those cars. So we'll see if that actually comes to fruition. And unfortunately for those guys, but fortunately for Kaz Gralla and Austin Cindric, Ryan Preece and David Reagan, they will be in the show on Sunday. Backup cars. This has been confirmed by Bob Pocker. So these are the teams that are tentatively going to a backup car for right now. We'll see if they have any more. Alex Bowman with his engine issues. We'll keep an eye on that, like I said earlier. But backup cars, we got Anthony Alfredo, Brad Keselowski, Chase Briscoe, Kaz Gralla, William Byron, Cole Custer, because he was involved in an incident there as well in that first duel. I forgot to mention that, but he got into the wall there at the end there late. So he's going to a backup car, and Ross Chastain rounds up the backup cars for right now. Okay. Some pretty heavy hitters for Sunday. Well, they're going to be starting at the rear of the field, namely Brad Keselowski. You look at there, William Byron as well. But you can't forget about any of the other guys. That anybody has a chance to win the Daytona 500 if that hasn't been proven enough in the past. So we'll see what they show up with practice tomorrow. At least they're going to have a chance to get their cars kind of tuned up prior to the actual race on Sunday. And speaking of practice, Steve Phelps just had a press conference. And he did. And as said, they are looking at, and it's highly likely that they will see practice and qualifying come back on a more consistent basis, if not every single weekend next year, which is, thank God.
Yeah. If it's not huge. At least 50%, I'm going to be mad.
Yeah, so. I need it. I need every single playoff race and basically 80% for myself to have practice and qualifying every single weekend for me to be happy, because I think
I'll be content with 50%. I won't be happy.
I won't be content with 50%. Like I will not be content with 50%. I will say that. But 18 races of 36, I am not taking 18 races with practice and qualifying.
We're at 8 right now, so I'll take any improvement.
I'm happy with what we had before all this pandemic stuff happened. So, I'm sure a lot of people are. But yeah. Encouraging signs there from Steve Phelps that he is actually addressing this. And Fox has said that they want more content as well. I think they've seen that the practice and qualifying stuff as well for their rating. So happy to see that that's going to translate. They just need all
the content they can get, right? It fills time, and that's a big thing for a lot of networks, and just makes a lot of sense because you look at it and, it saves money and time for teams, but the counter to that is it costs a lot for TV, because that's a decent chunk of viewership and content that you're missing out on throughout the week. Practice less so than qualifying, but and you can see that already from this week, and having practice so far, having qualifying, having the whole lead up is going to be very different going into next week. But you can just tell everybody misses it, and so as long as we can get more of it, I'll be a happy camper.
Me as well. I miss it so much. But you got any final thoughts on the duels before we move into
they were
the
just
fantasy
fun.
preview?
They were fun. They were a good time. And we didn't really have much in terms of the single file train racing. We had 15 laps of that, 20 laps of that in the first one after the green flag cycle.
Yeah, it was okay.
From lap 20 from 30 or 28 to go until a little under 10 to go. We were running single file there, but you expect a little bit of that. Of course, it's not like they're going to run double file or 3 wide the entire time for a qualifying race, essentially. So was very impressed. This package continues to deliver. The 500 is going to be fantastic. I can't wait.
I'm expecting a wreck-filled Daytona 500 once again here, because
I'm expecting a clean race until 30 to go. I feel
I think with this package, a push can go wrong so easily that there is the risk of something happening in that second
yeah,
stage or
they are
something
a
like
lot
that.
closer this year as well.
Yeah,
The cars are tuned down 5-6 mile an hour, so they're a lot tighter than they were at last year's Daytona 500. And
oh God, it is tough. It is very, very
yep,
tough.
not a lot of margin for error. I was surprised how clean the two duels were given that as well.
Yeah,
Especially when early on we saw 3 wide in the first duel. I was like, oh boy, this is going to be a disaster. But they held on to it pretty well.
Yep. All right, that does it for the Daytona Duels. Let's take a look at the starting lineup before we get into the fantasy preview. So Alex Bowman is going to be starting on pole for right now. We'll see if that happens come Sunday if they go with the backup engine. William Byron will not be starting on the front row there, so Austin Dillon will therefore move forward to the front row of the grid, but William Byron is still technically slated as starting second for this one based off of qualifying. Eric Almirola there. It goes in order here with the duels, of course. The first duel decides the inside lane, second duel decides the outside lane. So Eric Almirola third, Austin Dillon fourth. Christopher Bell with a strong performance there in that first duel to qualify fifth. Bubba Wallace there joining him with his Toyota teammate there in sixth. So pretty solid first attempt here for Bubba Wallace in the 2311 team. I don't know about you, but that team just like, I get a smile when I look at that car because there's so much behind it. I don't know.
Funny that we mentioned it right then because Steve Phelps just let it slip that Michael Jordan is filming something with Fox to air for the 500 pre-race. So
yes,
we are going to get a little MJ content before the race.
Yeah, they could not stop talking about it on the broadcast either. When's MJ?
I mean, would you?
Regan Smith. Oh my God, Regan Smith. I'm sorry, buddy, but like, so is MJ gonna be here, or can I talk to MJ soon, or like?
I gotta say, the nice little hints of the Jordan brand elephant print are so nice just to see on. Obviously, we know it's been on Hamlin's gloves for a long time, but just seeing
on the
like
shoes now too.
for of course the shoes, but for like the Busch Clash when Bubba was up on the pit box and his mask was like the elephant print, like I just love seeing that stuff. It's great.
It's huge marketing here for NASCAR to have Michael Jordan here.
I'm still holding out hope for a Jordan brand sponsored car at some point or a Nike sponsored car. Like, that's the dream. But
I would absolutely snag a diecast of that because it would just be one of the biggest sponsors to ever sponsor a NASCAR car. But yeah, Bubba Wallace there in sixth. Ryan Newman there, pretty solid dual showing as well. Underlying, I felt similar to him with Austin Dillon.
Good.
Despite Austin Dillon winning the duel, Ryan Newman was kind of up in that top three the entire duel race there with his Ford teammates there. Kevin Harvick 8th, Joey Logano 9th, Kyle Busch in 10th, Ryan Preece the first open entry there in 11th. So after his 5th place run there in the duels, he still qualifies there in 11th place. Chase Elliott in 12th. Kyle Larson there was kind of all over the place in his duel, didn't really show too much speed, which is kind of setting himself up, trying to keep the car clean, it seems. So we don't know really the extent to what that 5 car has in terms of speed compared to his Hendrick teammates that showed a bit more muscle in the duels. So we'll see what happens with that 5 car on Sunday. Ryan Blaney there 14th, Daniel Suarez 15th there for Trackhouse, was pretty solid there, led a couple of laps in his duel as well. So we'll see what that speed looks like if he aligns with the Chevys, I'm sure, come Sunday. Corey LaJoie there in 16th place, so pretty solid showing for him as well there for Spire Motorsports. Michael McDowell and his teammate there in David Reagan following in their 17th and 18th there. So pretty solid there for front row as well for their starting position, starting in the first half of the grid. Jamie Murray there on his one-off race qualifying there in 19th. Kurt Busch 20th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 21st. I was surprised by him. I think a little bit in his duel. Kind of wasn't up in the mix as much as I thought he was, but I'm sure that will probably not be the case come Sunday. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. usually gets up in the mix on these super speedway tracks. Chris Buescher there, 22nd. Matt DiBenedetto, 23rd. Brad Keselowski starting 24th right now, but he's going to a backup car, so we'll see where he ends up on Sunday. Denny Hamlin, after running out of gas there on that final lap, he's starting 25th. Martin Truex Jr. there as well, getting sucked back in the pack, just kind of let out of the gas and just coasted to the start-finish line, starting 26th there. So 2 Toyota teammates going to be probably working together to get up to the front there, I'm sure. Cole Custer there going to a backup car as well, 27th. Joey Gase, 28th. Tyler Reddick, 29th. I don't know what happened with Reddick in his duel. He was kind of, I think he lost the draft.
Him and Jones, I think, lost the draft at some point. I'm not sure what happened there.
But, starting back, I'm sure further than what he would have liked to for the 500. Chase Briscoe going to a backup car there in 30th. Eric Jones lost the draft like we just said there in 31st. Derek Cope 32nd. Quinn Houff, 33rd. Ross Chastain going to a backup car there, 34th. Cody Ware, 35th. Anthony Alfredo going to a backup car, 36th. Josh Bilicki, 37th, our guy. BJ McLeod, 38th. Austin Cindric there, 39th. And Kaz Grala going to a backup car as well in 40th. So that's the lineup for the Daytona 500. Some heavy hitters going to be starting in the back like we've talked about, but we got pretty solid overall grid. There are not too many slouchers, I guess, if that's even a word. Slouches, that's the word I'm looking for, not slouchers. Slouches for the 500. On Sunday, all right, Kyle. I think it's time. I think it might be time. It's time for the NASCAR Fantasy Preview to debut once again in 2021 with the Daytona 500. Our first real crack at this, I feel like, on this show. Starting the season off, we had COVID obviously hit last year, and we weren't really in a position to do the show with the fantasy previews as much last year. It's definitely ingrained in the culture of this show now. Week in and week out, we've got this.
Oh, yeah.
It's a fun thing that we do on this show. I think that's probably pretty unique compared to what other people that do NASCAR content do. So we feel pretty good about what we've got going on here. So like I said, to start off the show, we're going to be starting a league this year, the Green Flag. So go follow us on that and join the league, and we'll see how we all go up against each other here. It's going to be a fun experience.
We'll be sharing it around on Twitter, on Instagram as well. I'll add a link to that in the YouTube description as well. So be sure to join that up and join in, because I'm sure it'll be a fun time.
It will be. So we have a couple of new categories as the bonus categories this year. We usually just do the garage and the 5 main picks for this fantasy stuff, and of course the winner pick. But this year we're going to add the bonus picks that are on the NASCAR app. This time last year they had the pole award, and then qualifying got scratched, so that wasn't really a category that got counted last year, so they just blocked it out. They have the stage winners, the race winner, and the manufacturer winner. That was to the extent of the bonus picks last season. So not too much in terms of bonus picks to get some extra points. But this year, there is a ton of opportunity here to make up points on your opponents this year. And might I say, I am really freaked out by what this could do to my strategy this year. So let's take a look at what the bonus picks are before we get into the actual fantasy preview. Top Chevrolet finisher, top Ford finisher, and top Toyota finisher. Those will all earn you 5 points each if you can guess those correctly. So those are going to come down to individual drivers for those ones. So who do you think is going to be the top Chevrolet driver in the finishing Ford and Toyota finishers of that certain race? So that'll continue throughout the entire season. The winning manufacturer as well, that's going to be 10 points. The winning team as well, that is 10 points, along with the race winner, 15 points. We'll talk about the race winner a little bit later on when we look at the other series. So stay tuned for our Daytona 500 winner picks. But those are the bonus categories, which we'll talk about here in a second there. So there's a lot of points up for grabs there for the weekends. We'll see how many we get right, how many we get wrong.
And there's a lot of strategy to go with it too. You can load up on your winner pick and maybe go all in on them. You can diversify it and try and cover your bases or something like that. There's a lot of different stuff you can do. For context, last year I look back to the 2020 Daytona 500 just to see roughly like an example of what this would look like if you got everything right. So last year, of course, Denny Hamlin won the 500, which means winning manufacturer Toyota, winning organization Joe Gibbs, and of course top Toyota, but top Ford was Ryan Blaney. He finished second. The one that I found fascinating though, the top Chevy from last year, and I I had no clue what was this, finishing 7th in the 500, Brendan Gaughan. So just goes to show, especially for the Daytona 500 and super speedways in general, picking top Chevy, top Ford, top Toyota, everything like that is going to be a bit of a crapshoot. And I can't wait to see where our picks go for today.
Oh man, this is tough. The super speedway packages make these races so unpredictable that all of your guys could get knocked out in one wreck, and it could just come down to that. And it is especially the worst if you have a guy that has problems early on. You got to put him in the garage, and then as soon as the lineup locks after the second stage, you have a big wreck and all your guys get involved and you can't do any maneuverability with it. So there's a lot of strategy when it comes to it. So the drivers are scored obviously based off of their points earned from the race. That is all they earn. And then of course you can pick them for the bonus categories there for a little bit of extra incentive. So we'll go back and forth here, Kyle, between our picks here. We'll see if we have any similarities or differences. I'm not 100% certain on my lineup as of yet. So I'm interested to see what you do. I think that'll probably play a little bit into my strategy, but I have 7 guys I'm looking at right now in terms of my lineup. So we'll see how it all unfolds here at the end of things. So do you want to start things off with the NASCAR fantasy preview for 2021 then?
I will gladly start things off because I have 34 drivers in a random.org list.
Wow,
we're going back to the randomizer. It worked
it
for me at the last Super Speedway. I gotta go with it. I want to see if I can go back to back with it. And so we're going back to it. I got 34 drivers in here. I took out the Rick Ware, the Petty Ware, Starcom, and Live Fast cars because I don't want to have to try and bet on them. I left Spire in though because I like some of the speed that they've shown. So I got 34 drivers here.
You're not doing this to me again.
I'm doing it again.
I can't. Okay, are you going to pick the bonus picks for yourself then? Or are you going to just
the bonus picks I have for myself. Yeah. But
no!
let's see.
The embarrassment.
Let's see what the random.org gives me. Okay, randomizing.
Okay. Give me a bit of context here. You had Denny Hamlin in your last randomizer.
I'll pull up
what you had last time because it was pretty insane what you had.
I did get a good randomization. Let's see.
Let's go back to the Instagram.
I gotta find Talladega picks. So I had Denny Hamlin, John Hunter Nemechek, who racked up 35 points for me, Tyler Reddick, who racked up 34 points for me, Ryan Newman, who got 31 points for me, and then Jimmy Johnson, who racked and got 8 for a total of 148 points that day. Lukas got a whopping 75. He had Newman as well, Bowman 23, Blaney 16, Boyer 4, and Almirola.
And as you will remember that fall Talladega race, all 3 of those guys got taken out in that one wreck on the back straightaway when Alec Almirola was leading the race and he got wiped out. Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, and I think Clint Boyer all got involved in that one. So I was pretty screwed. And, out of all of it all, you got Denny Hamlin, who scored the 3rd most points that week.
He also won the race.
Yeah. So. Just stupid. So that's a bit of context on why I'm not looking forward to this one because I did lose pretty heavily to the randomizer last time. So take it away.
You ready?
Go with your first one.
Number 1.
I hope you don't get Hamlin.
Random number 1. This is an interesting one here. I've liked at times what I've seen from this guy in the last few years, but this speed weeks as well. Number 1 on the fantasy lineup, thanks to random.org, MTJ, Martin Truex Jr. is in the lineup.
Oh my God. Okay. He did look pretty good in the duels last night.
He was leading up until that last lap.
Yeah. So I can't, Frank, if I lose to this stupid thing again. But I will say, if this does come back to bite you in the butt later on with your managing your usages, I will gladly take you using a Martin Truex Jr. usage here in a super speedway racer when he's got a lot of road courses and a 1.5 mile track that he's very good at. So I don't feel too bad about that one. I feel like that one could come back to bite you if he doesn't end up in your garage. Of course, if he ends up in your garage, that usage is exempt.
I can always garage him.
So we'll see on what your strategy is for this one. Man, oh man. All right. My first guy is Eric Jones. I'm going to pick him as one of my guys for the Daytona 500 this week. Reason being, I don't think the 43 car I will use a ton of usages this season, and it's usually at the finish of these things. Eric Jones, a very underrated super speedway racer. I don't know if I didn't really get to see the speed of that 43 car necessarily this last time out in the duels just because he lost the draft. So I think he would have even maybe got caught up in one of those wrecks if he didn't lose the draft there. But no, he was in that first duel. Never mind. That's my bad. But Eric Jones, he's got an average finish of the last 6 races on the super speedways at Daytona specifically of 19.33. 1 victory there, of course, coming with JGR for his first career Cup Series victory. 2 top 5s and 27 laps led. So the stats are never going to look too great on super speedway races in terms of average finish, but overall, I think Eric Jones could be a sneaky underrated pick for the Daytona 500. It's all about managing these usages for me out of the gate here. I don't want to – I think he can maybe sneak some stage points. I don't know necessarily what the strategy will be. I think he'll be there at the finish of the race as long as he doesn't get involved in a wreck, but that's likely to be the case for a lot of guys come the end of the race. So I could be missing on Eric Jones here, but he's my first guy going into Sunday.
Big fan of that pick. I really like Eric Jones coming into the Daytona 500 because, as you mentioned, the 43 has shown speed in past years, and Eric Jones has been there at the end for Joe Gibbs as well. So big fan of that pick. All right, back to the randomizer for number 2. Here we go. Second in my lineup. I think this might be a little bit rigged because the first guy is Martin Truex Jr. and the second guy on the randomizer is Matt DiBenedetto. So it's a bit funny in that regard. It's just the guys I like.
Oh, my God. These guys.
But Matt DiBenedetto, he's in the conversation sometimes. He usually ends up involved in a wreck. But if he can stay clean, he's got his Penske teammates. He's got an extra one there in Austin Cindric as well. So if they can stay clean, he'll be in the conversation. Finished second at Talladega until they took that away from him last time we were at a super speedway. I'm feeling good about DiBenedetto as well. I don't know how much I would use him throughout the season as well. There's a couple races I'd think about, but I don't think he's somebody that I would get close to losing out on usages for or anything like that. So I feel good about him in my lineup here.
Oh, boy. I don't like this. Okay, my second guy is in the Ford camp as well. I'm going with Ryan Newman. I think he gets some redemption story this season. We all remember what happened last year in the Daytona 500. Came 100 feet away from winning his second career Harley J. Earl Trophy. Just didn't quite come to fruition there at the end of things. So, and I like the speed that he showed in the pack last night. I think that was a key factor. I wanted to wait on my picks a little bit till I saw what they looked like in the draft last night. And the 6 car really impressed me. I thought he stayed locked with the guys. He seemed like a good pusher as well. If he can work together, he's always at the finish of these things as well. He just always seems to be a contender at the end of these things. We've seen that multiple times. Hasn't quite got that win, but if he's at the finish, he's going to get me at least a 30-point score, hopefully. So I will absolutely take that for the 500 if he doesn't go for the stage points. Over the past 6 races, he's got an average finish of 13.33, which is actually 7th among drivers over the past couple of races here. But of the ones that have run 6 races, he's 3rd on that list. So pretty solid numbers there for Ryan Newman to be at the end of these things. He's got 4 top 10s, 16 laps led as well. So 4 top 10s out of 6 races on super speedway races.
That's pretty damn good.
It's pretty damn good. So I'm going to go with Newman as my second guy for my Daytona 500 lineup.
Yep, another very strong pick. Another guy, again, you don't know how much you'd use him out throughout the season, so you don't feel bad about tossing him in and seeing. But, yeah, no, I'm liking Newman and Jones there. Those are a couple solid ones. So, all right, back to the randomizer we go. Number 3. Okay, not sure how I feel about this one. We got an open entry on the list here. We're going colleague racing.
Oh, he goes.
Has Gralla into the lineup. So the thing for me is that last year they weren't really in the mix, but they got a solid top 15 finish. So I'm hoping for them that they're just kind of there at the end and they get some kind of points. So that's kind of one where I don't think that they'll probably be up in the pack, near the front and getting involved in a wreck. I think they'll be there at the end, especially with Gralla. He's a very smart and very solid super speedway racer. So I feel pretty good that they'll be there at the end and getting some kind of points off for me. So I feel okay about that Gralla one.
Oh, bro, that is such a good pick because that car is not going to be running consistently and it's not even a wasted usage. That is such a good value pick right there because. So
I put in Gralla into my lineup here and I'm pretty sure the 16 font they have there is Greg Biffles. So
yeah, they do. Yeah, on the NASCAR app. Yeah, they haven't updated it.
It has not been updated.
It has not been updated. Neither has the 23. It's still the old 23 is still BK Racing. Yeah. Oh, God. My third pick. All right. Oh, man, this is difficult. All right. I've gone with 2 soft picks for my first 2. It's time to go with a little bit of a heavy hitter here with this one, and none bigger than the 2-time defending champion of the Daytona 500. Denny Hamlin is going to be in my lineup on Sunday. I can't take the risk of not putting the guy in that has just been the most dominant on super speedway races over the past 3-4 years. Even prior to that, he's always been at the finish of these things. He's got an average finish over the last 6 races here of 12th, the best amongst active drivers in terms of the last 6 races on Daytona.
Ridiculous.
12th on the average finish is incredible. 4 top 5 finishes in the last 6 races, 2 wins, 145 laps led. I would be stupid to not put him in my lineup just based off of that risk factor. And with the amount of road courses, I don't know how much I'll be using Hamlin throughout the regular season on those tracks. So I've been always tentative to use Hamlin on a super speedway track just based off of the fact of the risk of a wreck.
Big name.
But this year, I think with the history on the line here, trying to become the first driver to ever go 3 in a row for the 500, there's going to be an immense amount of pressure for him to try and get that done. I don't know if I necessarily saw the speed in that 11 car that I've seen in the previous 2 years in the duels. So I'm a little bit hesitant on that respect. I don't know. I don't think he's the favorite going into Sunday, but I don't know if there is really a favorite going into the Daytona 500 to say that. So I'm going to go with Hamlin, though, just because I think he'll be at the front, could get me some stage points. And if he's there at the finish, that'll be just a great points haul for me. So that's my third guy.
Yep, he's currently the most owned guy in NASCAR fantasy right now, but at only 57%. So some people are feeling a little bit wary of the back-to-back thing, and he's got the best odds as well, plus 700 according to the NASCAR app as well. He's the guy, right?
Yeah,
he's going for history,
tough.
First ever three-peat. Our boy Nigel, he's betting on him to do it. We'll see if he's able to. It's tough to bet against Denny Hamlin, though. So at the halfway point, I've got Martin Truex Jr., Matt DiBenedetto, Kaz Grala. You've got Eric Jones, Ryan Newman, Denny Hamlin. No overlap yet. We'll see if the randomizer has that in mind for us.
If you get Newman, I'm going to be really upset because
as we go to number 4, we've got another open entry.
Preece?
But one I feel pretty damn good about. Ryan Preece.
Yeah.
Welcome to the lineup.
Man?
I feel good about these JTG cars. They've got speed. They're always in the conversation. Preece, more quietly than Ricky Stenhouse Jr., but Preece, especially at Daytona, seems like he's always in the conversation. So wasn't expecting to have 2 open entries in my lineup here, but I'm feeling pretty decent about both of them.
That's ridiculous, man. This is stupid that you're not getting any of these big names. Like that could cost you usage down the line. Like these guys are just going to be like, here you go. That's your one usage on the year, basically. Like, oh my God. I got to maybe look into this strategy here, but my randomizer luck is never that good. So, man. Okay, so now this is where it gets really difficult for me to go. These next 3 picks are just total toss-ups in terms of how I want to play it. But, man. Okay. I'm going to go with a guy that I originally did not have in my lineup, but I'm going to take a swing on him here.
Ooh.
David Reagan is going to be in my lineup.
Oh, I love it.
David Reagan. These front row cars are super good on these super speedway tracks. Reagan is an underrated super speedway racer. And I think with the approach that he took in the duels, I think he could take something similar in the 500 of being there at the finish. And you'll most likely earn more points with guys that are going to be at the finish of the race than the guys that score a whole bunch of stage points. They usually get caught up in the wrecks. I think Reagan takes the cautious approach.
He finished 4th last year, for crying out loud.
Exactly. Like I think Reagan could be a guy that people are going to overlook, and I'm happy to have him in my lineup there as my 4th guy.
Yep, I'm a fan of that one. He's always he's just such a smart super speedway racer, right? He's always there at the end of things.
And he's going there just for the 500 victory. He doesn't need to go out there and score points. He has to be there at the finish of the race, and that's a huge part of the equation for me here. I think if you want to, get the actual finish here, he's only racing for the trophy. Anything but that is a bust. So I think if he puts himself in the right situation at the end of the race, then we could be looking at David Reagan, maybe in victory lane. I don't know. You never know, man. He could win it.
That would be quite the story.
I would love it. Okay. I would absolutely love it.
Random number 5. Okay. Not a huge fan of this one. I'm not going to lie here. He finished top 10 last year in the Daytona 500, but I don't really like him on super speedways. He's got a good car, but I'd rather save him for some other ones, but I'll stay true to it. I'm not going to take him out of the lineup here. Kyle Larson, welcome to the lineup here.
Yes.
I know you like that one there.
Yes. He's got terrible numbers.
For me, not good on the super speedways. Picked up a top 10 last year, but that's not really anything to pay attention to. He's got Hendrick power this year, but Hendrick usually ends up in a wreck. So depending on what I get for my number 6 here, I'll probably end up benching one of Larson or Truex, but we'll see. We'll see how things play out. on Sunday here.
All right, randomizer does have a little bit of justice, I have to say, just a little.
Okay.
I'm happily take that pick for you there.
I hope Denny Hamlin wrecks on lap number 1 for you.
All righty, well, I'll just save a Hamlin
Actually,
usage.
no, whatever the first lap after the end of the second stages.
Yeah, appreciate that, Kyle. All right, I've got 2 picks left, I guess, eh?
Yeah, you do.
All right. Oh, this is tough. This is extremely...
Heavy hitter, underdog, where are we thinking here?
All right. Okay. I'm going to go with another Toyota with this one. I'm going to lock it in here. I don't know if I go. Okay. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to go with it. Bubba Wallace is in my lineup on Sunday. I think I could garage him. I think he could be the guy that maybe starts something by being a little bit too aggressive.
Yeah.
It is so tough for me to put Bubba Wallace in the lineup, but there's so much storylines around this 23 car this week. It's hard not to put him in there, and I don't know if I'll be using Bubba Wallace as much throughout the regular season here. I think
definitely not at the road courses.
Exactly. So I think the 23 car is a good bet here to maybe get you those stage points. We'll see if he's around at the finish of it. I don't know if he'll be there. I think you could get involved in a wreck. I could easily see that. I kind of see it in my mind already. I just think if Hamlin is not there at the finish, maybe Bubba Wallace could be there and vice versa kind of thing. So I'll take what I can get there, and I think those 2 Toyotas of them all will be probably the best bets to maybe go win the 500 or have a solid finish. So it's just too big of a storyline for me to look past. So he's got an average finish over the last 6 races of 14.83, 2 top 10s, no laps led, but he showed some pretty good speed in the duels. I really like the way that car looked in terms of sucking up to the next car in front of him. It seemed like he had a lot of single car and draft speed. So we'll see if that 23 car just kind of keeps himself clean. I hope he does, but I'm going with him as my 5th guy.
Yep. Love that one because Bubba Wallace, sneaky good at super speedways, was always in the conversation with Richard Petty at some point during the race. 2311 shows more speed. He's got more teammates there or more significant ones, I should say, with the Joe Gibbs guys there. And it's not somebody that you're probably going to use throughout the season and get close to the usage limit. So toss one out on the super speedway. It's where his skill set's probably best and see how she goes. Alrighty. Last picks. All right, a randomizer. Give me something good here. Don't give me a big name.
What are you hoping for before you get into it? What would you consider an ideal candidate for your lineup come Sunday?
Well, my race winner pick probably is probably the best one I would like. But other than that, I would be looking at one of the 3 guys in your lineup, Eric Jones, Ryan Newman, or Bubba Wallace. I really, really, really like those 3, especially for the usages when they come into play. So I would be hoping for one of those 3, probably, maybe a Ricky Stenhouse Jr. as well, but I probably don't want both JTG cars, but we'll see how she goes. All right. Random number 6. Okay. I'm okay with this one. This is a guy that was infamous at the end of last year's race. But once again, he's always there at the end of the race, kind of similar to what I think Kaz Grala. Corey LaJoie, welcome to the lineup here.
That's an interesting one.
I like that one because Spire's shown some speed here. They've been good in the packs. He's got Jamie McMurray as a teammate. But for LaJoie here, again, he's always at the end of these races. He's got some better equipment this year as well. He's not working with Go Fast equipment now. He's with Spire, and Spire have some ties to Hendrick and Chip Ganassi and those kind of teams. And I think he could be a sneaky top 10 candidate once again this year. So I'm very okay with that pick added to the lineup. Is kind of a couple safer guys that I hope will be there at the end and just kind of get somewhere between 20 and 30 points and just kind of help push up the numbers and maybe a couple of your guys wreck or something like that. But I'm okay with that because it gives me the possibility to garage a guy like Truex, garage a guy like Larson, and save those usages for later. So I feel pretty good about this randomizer. Not as good as the last one. Of course, the last one was kind of ridiculous how good my lineup ended up being, but I still feel pretty okay with it.
That's a good value pick. I feel like
because obviously you're not going to be using LaJoie anywhere other than a super speedway if you are at all. So
yeah. All right, I'm looking at 3 guys for my last pick here. It's coming down to 3. It's Eric Almirola, Matt DiBenedetto,
Okay.
and Jamie Mack.
Jamie Mack. Okay. Okay.
I honestly don't know what I'm going to do with this one because McMurray, you're only going to get one usage out of him the entire season, and he's a really good super speedway racer. I think of him in the same regard to what I do of David Reagan. But Matt DiBenedetto and Eric Almirola could be the ones that maybe sneak out a bit more of a shot to win the 500 or get me those stage points. I don't know if I necessarily like the speed I saw from DiBenedetto's car, so I might take a little bit more of a cautious approach on this one. I kind of want to match you on that one, but at the same time, I feel like it's probably best for me to just stay away from the randomizer entirely because that thing freaks me out. But Eric Almirola won the duel last night. Like, the car looks pretty sporty. Seems like he's going to be, up in that mix. He's with the Ford camp, so he's going to have a little bit more support behind him. But Jamie McMurray could be the guy. He's only there to win the 500, and he has to be in the position to win it there at the end. Spire Motorsports actually looked pretty decent in both of their duels as well. The 77 was obviously slower than the 10, but will the 10 get involved in another incident like he usually does on these super speedway tracks? I've convinced myself. I'm going to split the difference here. I'm going to go with 2 Toyotas, 2 Fords, and 2 Chevrolet. I'm going to go with Jamie McMurray as my final pick here for the garage. I just want to take the cautious approach here out of the gate. I feel like if it bites me in the butt, it bites me in the butt here. But I'd rather take the chance here on taking McMurray and saving some of these bigger guys for something a little bit more definite down the road. Because when I see what happened in the duels, some of these guys are going to be laying around in the back, and I think McMurray and David Reagan kind of fit that mold. And even Ryan Newman to an extent. They kind of just always ride around in the back and just get a feel of what the race is going to happen, and they avoid the big one. I think Jones and Hamlin and Bubba Wallace are kind of my heavy hitters in terms of maybe getting those stage points. But, yeah, I'm going to go with on the cautious side of things for my Daytona fantasy lineup. It's tough to go with those guys, but we'll see if it pays off for me this year. I don't know. I'm nervous about it, but I'm feeling decent about my lineup. I don't know. It's the 500, man. It's so up in the air.
All right, should we recap our lineups here then?
For sure. All right.
I'm rolling with Martin Truex Jr., Matt DiBenedetto, Kaz Gralla, Ryan Preece, Kyle Larson, and Corey LaJoie. Shout out random.org.
That's a good lineup, man. I have to be honest. I think there's some potential there for yours to kick my ass.
Yeah. Other than the Larson one, I feel pretty okay about the rest of them.
Yeah.
So,
all right. For mine, I've got Denny Hamlin, Eric Jones, Ryan Newman, Bubba Wallace, David Reagan, and Jamie McMurray. Cautious side of things there. Shout out to my brain for that one. So, yeah. All right. We've got honorable mentions and stay away from's returning before we get into the bonus picks here. Honorable mentions, there's a whole bunch of them, I feel like, this season. Of course,
the field we didn't mention.
Yeah, anybody could win this thing. But Eric Almirola, Matt DiBenedetto, I still think they are honorable mentions. They could easily make anybody's lineup. So keep an eye on them. Austin Dillon, after seeing what I saw in the duels, I think that 3-car could be at the end of this thing. So keep your eye on him. Christopher Bell as well. Was pretty impressed by his driving in the duel as well. I just think that Adam Stevens, Christopher Bell combo could be something to watch for. So it's going to be, if Christopher Bell wins the 500 with Adam Stevens, I may just cry. But yeah, Christopher Bell, I thought he looked a little bit sporadic at times, not as much as Bubba Wallace's car did or how he was driving, but I felt like he was just a little bit unsure of himself at points in time. So could be an interesting one there with Bell. William Byron coming from the back, but I still think that car will have speed. He's good on the super speedway tracks. Won at Daytona, obviously, in the regular season finale last year. Bowman is an interesting one. Doesn't quite always get the car to the finish, but if he's able to start on pole with the speed that car showed in single car speed, we didn't really get to see it in the duel. He could be one to watch. I would be a little bit more on the cautious side with Bowman, but you could definitely put him in. Joey Logano is just a great super speedway racer. It's hard to not go with him in one of these tracks. So keep your eye on, obviously, him. Either he starts the wreck or he's avoiding it kind of thing. So it's tough to say with Joey Logano. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in similar fashion could be similar to what happens with Logano there. I don't know if I saw the speed from that 47 car as much as I did last year, so I stayed away from him this time around. Ryan Preece as well I have in my honorable mentions because that car looked pretty sporty, and Ryan Preece is going to have to be there at the finish of the thing to try and get those owner points. With being an open entry, that does matter for them this season. So we could see maybe a bit more of a cautious approach from that 37 car. I have Kyle Busch in here as an honorable mention as well, going for that 500.
Okay.
I think he could be one to watch, not just to say with favoritism or anything like that, but with Kyle Busch, I think that there is potential there with him just kind of being there at the end. He's been at the end for a couple of the last things. He always seems to be in contention with the 500, just hasn't been able to execute from that first one yet. Ryan Blaney as well, I was really looking at, but I decided to go with strength of schedule, and that Clash performance on the road course really kind of proved something to me that he could be a potential point getter on the road courses this season, not just on the mile and a half and short track. So I could see somebody going with him, finishing second, obviously last year. And he's really good on these tracks. Won at Talladega, of course, the past couple of seasons. And Kaz Grala was another one on my honorable mentions, just because of that non-usage factor. He just has to plan for one race, and hopefully he's there at the end of the thing, just trying to win the Daytona 500. The stay away from Brad Keselowski is one I'm looking at here, just because of his lack of luck in the 500, and I don't know. Going to a backup car doesn't install much confidence in me either. I think Penske's more oriented on their primary cars. Martin Truex Jr. was a stay away from I had as well, just based off of his super speedway history. And I think the road courses are going to be proving very valuable for Truex this season, and I'm expecting a bounce back on the mile and a half, so I would not want to waste the usage on him on the super speedways. Kevin Harvick as well was another one I said stay away from, just based off of his mile and a half factor potential this season, and he never quite get to the finish of these things on the super speedways. Chase Elliott as well. I would not use him at all this weekend. I would highly recommend not using Chase Elliott this weekend. Even if he wins the 500, I think his usages will be more valuable elsewhere this season. He's all-around threat on any kind of track, and I think the super speedways may be a bit of a waste of a pick for Chase Elliott. Tyler Reddick as well. Just seems to always get an incident here or there on these super speedway tracks. I don't think he's the greatest at this type of racing, so stay away from him. And Kyle Larson was the last one I had for stay away from, just based off of previous history and going into a Cup car kind of cold this season. I think it could take a little bit of an adjustment period here for him to get back up to speed there. And I don't think that 5 car is going to be the strongest of the super speedway cars that Hendrick puts out. So a lot of names there, lots to go through. But obviously I could be entirely wrong here in terms of staying away from. Probably one of my stay away froms, if you watch last season, is going to win the Daytona 500. So, there is always that factor, but I could always look like an idiot. But the numbers don't lie most of the time. And I just have a gut feeling on some of those guys. So that's what I've got for those categories.
Alrighty. Do we get to our bonus picks now?
I guess so. I guess it is time for that.
All right, we're going to skip race winner for now. We're going to do that at the end when we do all of our winner picks for the entire weekend. ARCA, Trucks, Xfinity, Cup, everything for this special Daytona opener. So what do we start with here?
Top Chevrolet.
Do we start with Top Chevrolet? All right. Do you want to take this one first? Or you want me to take the reins?
I can take this one first here.
Okay.
All right, so I went with the strategy of guys being there at the finish of this thing, and I'm going to stick true to that. I'm going with the guy that I have in my lineup for Chevrolet. I'm going with Eric Jones to be the highest Chevrolet finisher in the Daytona 500.
I have Eric Jones too. No way.
Yeah.
No, I really like Eric Jones here. I feel like he'll be at the safe approach. He'll be there at the end. 43 has been good at super speedways recently. Eric Jones has been as well. I like that combination going into this one. And as shown by the results last year, the Chevys got all in a bunch of trouble, as Hendrick usually does, because they're all racing together.
Yeah.
And then when one of them gets in a wreck, all of them get in a wreck.
Yeah.
So I went somewhere different. I thought about Austin Dillon for this one. I'm not going to lie, but I'm going to stick with Eric Jones here.
Yeah, I just think he's a good safe bet for this one. It's not going to cost you anything. It's only 5 points. Just put a little bit of a token. If you don't have him in your lineup, I think he's a decent bet to maybe get the top Chevrolet finisher. And plus, Eric Jones knows he's in a different situation this year, being the 43 car. These tracks are his best chance to win this season, so you can play the more cautious approach throughout the entire race. It's a long race, 500 miles, 200 laps. Don't put yourself in jeopardy early on to get involved in the big one or multiple big ones. That is most likely to be the case. But, Eric Jones. I'm not surprised that you went with Eric Jones, but at the same time, it's funny that we both had a similar strategy here with the top Chevrolet. You take the next one with top Ford finisher first.
Top Ford finisher. I don't have him making the playoffs, but I like him this weekend. Eric Almirola, I'm going to give a shout as my top Ford finisher.
Oh, my God.
What I'll
Okay.
say here is I'm diversifying the lineup a little bit. That's a little tease maybe for a little bit later. Eric Almirola, I like the speed this weekend. He's not going to be my race winner pick, but I'm covering my bases here just in case he does have a really good day. I think that he does end up getting caught up in a wreck, but I've liked the speed they've shown. They've got a lot of help there. So Almirola, I'll toss in as my top four, diversify the lineup a little bit.
Okay. Okay. This is a tough one for me, the top Ford, because they are the
Yeah.
most heavily manufactured team in the or manufacturer in the sport. So let's take a look at the odds quickly here too. I have these pulled
Ooh.
up. Chevrolet is a plus 150 to win the Daytona 500. Ford is a plus 180, and Toyota is the furthest odds, of course, being with the lack of drivers that they have. But that is at plus 225. So an interesting little bit of note there on maybe the winning manufacturer, which we'll talk about here in a second.
Also going back, the favorite for Chevrolet top finisher is of course Chase Elliott at plus 900. He's also the most owned Chevrolet in lineups at 42%. So people need to listen to your little comment there, to say the least. I do like him a little bit more than you, but I also wouldn't use him in my lineup. I just think he's more valuable elsewhere.
It's just the name value. Just the name value.
Yeah. For the Fords, plus 900 for Joey Logano atop the charts there. Most owned, though, is Ryan Blaney. So a little bit of difference there between the odds and the percentages from what people are going with so far.
All right. Speaking of Joey Logano, I have him as my top Ford finisher.
Very good one.
I'm just covering my bases here because I think he could be a one that's a sneaky play. I really like the speed that he showed in the duels. I don't have him in my lineup just because I'm saving some usages on him throughout the regular season. Yep. And he's just too big of a wild card for me. He can either get involved in a wreck or he's at the finish of it. So it's hit or miss, but I'm going to go with him as my top Ford finisher for the 500.
Big fan of that one.
Alrighty. Yeah. Top Toyota finisher. I'm going with Denny Hamlin for this one, just because I have him in my lineup, and it's just too big of a no-brainer for me to not pick him for this one. If he's there at the end, then you're just going to own a boatload of points from Denny Hamlin. If he's not, then, it is just a swing and a miss. It would just be too tough to not put the two-time defending Daytona 500 champion there.
Yeah, plus 700 odds, 57% owned. Both are the best so far in the NASCAR app. And yeah, I'm matching it as well. It's not going to affect your usages for him this season. Toss him into the top Toyota. Even if you don't have him in your lineup and he goes out and wins the race or finishes top Toyota, you'll still get a couple points from his finish there without having to burn a usage on him. So I think that's just a smart play there as well.
All righty. Winning manufacturer. We just heard the odds there. Chevrolet the favorite, Toyota being the least favorite, Ford right there in the middle. Yeah. What have you got there for the winning manufacturer?
I'm rolling with Ford for this one. I feel like they've just got the most players in the game, and so I feel like you're covering your bases with Ford there. I know JGR, Bubba Wallace as well have looked strong so far, but I like playing the Ford game for this one.
I'm also going with the Ford camp for the Daytona 500. Like all the reasons you just stated there, they have the most amount of drivers behind the wheel of that blue oval, and it's just too hard for me to go against them for right now. I think that I've been impressed with the speed that they've shown. Chevrolets look pretty decent as well. I just wouldn't go with the Toyota just because of the lack of drivers that they have. There's more of a chance of, not Bubba Wallace or Denny Hamlin to not win the race, and then you have the other manufacturers most likely win it. So Ford, consensus pick there. All right. Last bonus pick here, winning organization. So this could be a little bit, this is going to be the most telltale sign of maybe our race winner kind of pick. It's a little bit of a spoiler if you wanted to go with the same with the race winner pick, or if you want to go with that diversify your lineup approach with having one organization that you feel like can have the most amount of luck or the least amount of luck. So this is a tough one. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't have mine decided right now. So if you have yours, you can go ahead.
I do.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. I have two teams that I'm deciding between right now.
It is a Ford team. I like especially two of their drivers as some of the favorites to win the race. My winning organization, Team Penske. I think that Ryan Blaney, he's always up there. He's one of the best super speedway racers right now in the sport. Joey Logano as well. Austin Cindric is an extra car you toss in there as well. Normally, you'd only have 3 entries for Team Penske. You get an extra 4th in there. So who the hell knows? Maybe the open car upsets. But for me, I'm going Team Penske. I think that's playing the odds game.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna cover my bases here. I'm gonna go with something different than you here. I'm gonna,
Okay.
that Penske mark that you said with the 4 cars is an underrated element, just because if Team Penske and this team, Joe Gibbs Racing, I'm going with to win the Daytona 500 here as the winning organization, just based off of the fact that they have 4 full-time cars that I think could win it. I don't know. Truex is maybe a bit more on the edge of compared to the other ones for me, but I just think you got to go with a 4-horse stable for these things. It's too big of a risk to maybe go with a single car or a double organization. You have the more options to win something like this with 4. The match just obviously lines up with that. So you're going with Team Penske. I'll go with Joe Gibbs Racing here. That's the bonus picks almost. We're going to get to the Daytona 500 here, 500 winner pick in a second here, but yeah, I'm excited for this one. I'm excited. All right. But before we get into the Daytona 500 pick, we have to make our predictions for the other series that are going to be at the High Banks at Daytona this upcoming weekend. ARCA Menard Series, Truck Series, and Xfinity Series before we get into our Daytona 500 picks. So, all righty. ARCA Menards. Jamie Little in the booth calling her first race.
Hell
It's going to be a good
Briscoe, doing color as well, I believe.
Yes, he is. So, all right. Do you want to go first?
I'll kick things off. I'll kick things off.
Okay. Nope.
Okay, I'll go. Okay. ARCA here is always an interesting one because it's less dependent on the drafting than some of the other ones. It's very much the top teams are the top teams here. So I'm looking for the top teams. I'm also looking for somebody with experience on super speedways because I think that's a big factor as well. There's some big names in this race or big organizations that maybe don't have as much experience with some of the drivers on the big track here. So my ARCA pick for Saturday's race will be Venturini number 15, Drew Dollar. He won at Talladega, finished top 3 at Daytona. I think that's some decent odds for that play.
Alrighty. I'm going with the defending ARCA Menard Series champion, Brett Holmes. I'm going to say he wins at Daytona this season. I just went with kind of name value there, and that car was pretty speedy last year as well. Yeah. I was looking at some of the Toyotas. Ty Gibbs is one that stands out to me a little bit as a potential there just based off how well he did in the ARCA Menard Series last year. But I'm going to go with I seem like there was a couple more Chevrolets. It's going to be close between the Toyotas and Chevrolets, I feel like, for this one. But I'll say that Brett Holmes gets it done.
I like it. All right. So we get to trucks, which is actually tonight. So we'll know this one first off.
Yep. And we have qualifying going on as we speak with the trucks.
Yep. As we speak.
Haley Deegan is the top of the board. Yes.
On only one to have a lap of 179 mile an hour so far. Still a lot of the big teams to go still. Yeah. Still quite a few to go, but kind of interesting that could be a potential storyline. But alrighty, do you want to take trucks first then?
Yes. All right. I'm going with Austin Hill to win the series opener for the Truck Series. Won this race in the past with the Tory Motorsports. I think he does it again here. I had to go back. If you missed our Truck Series season preview, I had to go look at that. I didn't want to go with an all-ball pick right out of the gate. There's definitely some guys I was looking at, but then I was like, oh, wait, that doesn't make sense because I don't have them making the playoffs, so I couldn't go with them. So I'm going with Austin Hill, a guy I think is going to be right in there in the championship contention this season, and he's pretty good on the super speedways as well.
Yeah, I like the Toyotas coming into tonight for the Truck Series. This guy was good at super speedways his entire career. He's going back down to the Truck Series. I'm saying John Hunter Nemechek starts off with a bang. Wow. Hey, don't forget, KBM won the last super speedway there with Rafael Lessard. Shout out.
I remember.
So I'm gonna say KBM wins back-to-back super speedways in the Truck Series. John Hunter Nemechek. They got a lot of Toyota help as well with ThorSport there. I think Toyotas are probably your safe bet to win the race there. So I'm going John Hunter.
Yep, definitely. It is it's a good pick. That's a good pick. All right. Xfinity Series.
Okay. This is one where I was like, you know what? Screw it. Somebody's got to be like an upset kind of winner throughout this weekend, right? There's got to be one. So I'm going with it. Mr. Ryan Sieg wins the season opener. New Ford. He's got some new teammates there. He's going to have some more people to work with. Ryan Sieg goes out and wins the season opener. He's been good on super speedways, finished top 5 there at Talladega last time out. I'm going to say he goes and gets it done. First career victory for Mr. Sieg with the Ford camp.
Wow. I love that pick. I absolutely love that pick.
I had to make one, right?
Yeah.
You gotta go take a punt on one.
Well, I'm not taking a punt on this one. I'm going with Justin Haley
Okay. Yeah.
to win the season opener here. Super good on the super speedways, and I just can't bet against Colleague right now on these types of tracks. Maybe not Daytona is his greatest suit. I would say that Talladega is a little bit better for him, but I just can't bet against Justin Haley on these types of tracks. So I'm going to go with him to open the season off with a victory.
Which means we're here.
Yeah.
First race winner pick.
The big one.
The season.
The biggest of
and
them all.
I believe, yeah. And you go first on this one.
Oh, no. This is terrible. Oh, all righty.
Do you have somebody in mind?
Yes.
Okay, because I do too. So
okay. I am fascinated to see what you go with for this one because I'm totally out to lunch with this one with this pick. But okay, so to reference back to my bonus picks, there's something in there that kind of hinted away at who I think is going to win this race.
Okay.
Top Chevrolet driver, I went with Eric Jones. I think he's going to be a great bet. I don't think he's going to win the Daytona 500. Top Toyota finisher, I went with Denny Hamlin. I don't think he's going to go with a three-peat here. I don't think he makes history. It is just too hard for me to do that. I'm going with Joey Logano to win the 2021 Daytona 500. I don't have him in my fantasy lineup here, but this is the reason why. I can fall back on this with the bonus picks if he does end up having the amount of speed that I think he will. And I went with him with the top Ford finisher. I went with Ford as the winning manufacturer, and I went with him as the Daytona 500 pick. I went with the winning organization being Joe Gibbs Racing because I didn't want to put all my eggs into the Penske basket. I think it's just too big of a risk. But I'm going to go with Joey Logano. I just think he starts the season off strong here. It is so difficult for me to say that, but I just like the speed that 22 car is shown. Going to have the Ford backing behind him. And I think he goes for his second Daytona 500 championship here in 2021, 6 years later after his first.
All righty. Well, referencing back to mine, I also had Eric Jones as my top Chevy, also had Denny Hamlin as my top Toyota. Neither of those are my pick either, but neither is Eric Almirola. Winning manufacturer Ford, winning organization Penske. Your 2021 Daytona 500 winner will be Ryan Blaney. I'm going to go with the pick. He's been fantastic on super speedways, was barely edged out last year. Yeah. I think he gets some redemption for last year, gets some redemption for the Busch Clash as well. I think he's going to have a great season this year. Starts it off with a Daytona 500 victory. It's only a matter of time for him. I think this year he gets it done.
Yeah, that was a guy I was looking at as well. Those two, Logano and Blaney, man, they're just so good on these tracks. I just went with Logano just because of Blaney's incident last year. I don't know if he can necessarily be at the end of the finish again this year. It's so hard to do. Oh, man, that is tough. I like the pick, though. I think I have Blaney making my championship four, so I think he's going to have a great season if he starts it off with a win in the 500. That's only a sign of good things to come. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The fantasy preview and our winner picks for this upcoming weekend at Daytona. Going to be an absolute blast. Wow, I'm happy that that's kind of behind us now. The first fantasy preview is done, but I can kind of breathe a sigh of relief. But any final thoughts before we wrap up today's episode, Kyle? We've got a fun weekend in store.
Oh, yeah, we do, and it all starts tonight. So hopefully by the time you're listening to this, it's before the Truck Series race, and if so, you'll know what our picks are and who to watch for that one. But very, very excited for that Truck Series race starting tonight. So many storylines for the Truck Series this week, this entire season. So few playoff spots, so many great drivers in that series. But really, it's the whole weekend. Xfinity is probably the one that that's probably least exciting in terms of the storylines. But even then, you still have some big names returning to the series in full-time basis, like Daniel Hemrick, for example. So there's a lot to watch for in that series as well. Josh Berry making his Xfinity return, I guess, in a way, but really
Dillon's
just kind of his
54.
debut. Exactly. So there's a lot of stuff. Ty Dillon maybe get some revenge on Austin Dillon or something like that. Sorry, Austin Cindric, I should say. Sorry. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Tyler Reddick's also running that race. So there's a lot of fun stuff to watch in Xfinity still. and then it's the 500. It's the biggest race of the year. It starts off the year. There's going to be so much to watch for. There's going to be so much great pre-race content as well. The E60 Intimidator, I cannot wait to watch. That's going to be an unbelievable E60. Can't wait for that. There's so much to watch for, so much to be excited for. We're finally here.
Yeah, we are. It's been a long time coming, been a long winter, but we're very happy to be back here. I think we've done our due diligence with our pre-Daytona 500 weekend coverage. I think we've done as much as we can to unpack this upcoming weekend. I'm pretty proud of what we've been able to accomplish. So very excited for this, for the racing that we're going to see this weekend. Make sure to go follow us on Instagram at The Green Flag. Follow us on Twitter at The Green Flag Pod. We'll be active on there throughout the entire weekend and for the season to come. Make sure to go join the Fantasy League. That will be in the description of the YouTube video. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'd really appreciate it. Wishing you guys all the best in watching the Daytona 500 and all the other races this upcoming weekend. But for this episode, I've been Lukas Wacker. He's been Kyle Cushman. Signing off for now. We will talk to you tomorrow to recap the Truck Series, ARCA, and Xfinity Series season openers. Enjoy the racing, everybody.